Alright, so first of all, let's just get a couple things straight. Luke Skywalker is not the most powerful Jedi. That's Mace Windu. The wisest is, of course, Yoda. Best all around is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Cal Moody, just a total jerk. Anakin Skywalker doesn't show up anywhere on the list. Let's just be honest about that. Second of all, Disney Star Wars is okay. It's fine. You guys were worried about nothing. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. The definitive ranking goes like this. Empire Strikes Back is always at the top. At the very bottom is always Attack of the Clones. Everything else in the middle is negotiable. Put those in whatever order you want. Han shot first, by the way. It's not interesting anymore. Nobody cares, but he shot first. The prequels, let's be honest, are objectively bad films. They're only good for memes, really, when it comes down to it. However, the Clone Wars cartoon TV show, that is definitely worth a watch. Really handles the characters in a nuanced way. Finally, look, women can be heroes. Black guys can be stormtroopers. This is Star Wars. Com 110H. I'm Dr. Daniel Larson. I'm your professor. Com 110H is first and foremost a writing class. Why do you need to take a writing class? Classes like this happen all over the country. FPU is not the only place that does writing classes. Everyone has to take a class like this. Why is it so important? Let me give you 3 reasons. The first, you take a writing class to know yourself better. It's been said writing crystallizes thought. All of our thoughts are these amorphous, cloudy things that just buzz around all over the place. But when we write it down, it becomes concrete, it becomes tangible, it becomes something real. And when it becomes something real, we can know better what we're thinking, and even more than that, we can know how we're thinking. When we write things down, we come to know the structure of our own minds. This is deeply important, to know yourself, know how you think. This is what writing can give you. But even more than that, writing, it has been said, withholds utterance so that it can perfect it. You know what it's like sometimes you say something and you want to just draw it right back. You didn't say it right, you didn't say what you mean to say. When you write, you get the opportunity to refine your thoughts, to bring it down to exactly what you mean to say. Writing withholds utterance so that it can perfect it. That's a pretty good idea, right? Know yourself better. That's great. There's another one, though. Another reason you take a class like this is because writing is an in-demand skill. It's something that everybody is looking for. On the one hand, you can take that to mean you'll get a good job with this, but really, that's probably the worst excuse to do anything, that you'll make money doing it. That's not why you want to do something. I think more than that, though, writing gives you a skill that's valuable to a community. Learning how to communicate well and to do so in a written form is something that a lot of people can really benefit from. And if you have that skill, you will be valuable to the people who are around you. Third, this is a little more complicated. Writing gives us access to the world. Here's what I mean by that. We apprehend the world around us through symbols. Everything we've encountered, everything that we know, everything that we think about, we do this through symbol, through word. If knowledge is power, knowledge is nothing without words. When we learn how to control our words, what we're finding is a greater access to these structures that hold the world together. It's not so that you can now use language to manipulate power, to get a hold of power in some way that you didn't have before. It's more like this. You have language and the mastery over language so that you can invite other people into those systems of power. This is true of education in general. You're not getting an education for yourself. You're getting an education for everyone else. Your job as an educated person, the privilege that comes with being educated, is to open the door for other people. When you learn how to control language, when you gain mastery over language, you gain mastery over the rest of the world. And when you have the keys to the universe, you can unlock the doors for other people as well. Okay, great. That's why writing. Everyone knows you should write, but why Star Wars of all things? I mean, give me a break. It's just a silly movie. I think Star Wars is a bit more than that. Star Wars is really the great myth of our time. It's the great cultural legacy that we have inherited. Now, 3 generations of people have grown up seeing what a hero looks like through the lens of Star Wars, learning right and wrong through the lens of Star Wars. This is more than just a bunch of bad acting and silly costumes and laser swords. There's something else happening here. When we look at Star Wars, what we begin to do is have a deep critique of the culture that produced the film. And that's our culture, seeing the world that made us and made this. As we engage this, we're also engaging culture. But it's a little bit bigger than that because Star Wars starts to broach some major themes that we can think even more about. Things like good versus evil, things like war profiteering, things like loyalty and friendship, things like controlling anger, things like unjust systems of power and the way that they collapse, violence and peacemaking, rooting for the little guy, but also hoping for the reconciliation of the big bad guy at the end. Star Wars is a way into all of these things, and it's not just writing that we master in this, it's also analysis. How do you read a piece of pop culture, and how do you find in it all the meaning that makes it up? We're going to engage this course through the specific lens of academic writing. This course is meant to equip you an understanding of the major genres, the major forms that you'll encounter in the university. So what kinds of papers are you going to be expected to write in all of your classes? What you're going to learn in this class is how to engage those papers most effectively. We'll have 4 units total. Each one of these units will correspond to a specific form, a specific genre in academic writing, and each of these 4 units will address one aspect of the wider Star Wars universe. We'll begin, first of all, with an open form essay. This is thesis-seeking prose. You ask a question and then search for an answer through analysis. As we pursue this paper, we'll be looking at the original Star Wars trilogy, what started it all back in the 70s and the 80s and really kick-started this phenomenon. In the second unit, we'll move to argumentation. A far more structured paper, more rigorous. You start with a thesis, then you defend that thesis through research and logical argumentation. In this paper, we'll be exploring the prequel trilogy. It happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. The second generation of Star Wars fans grew up on this set of movies. What does this set of films contribute to our understanding of the world of Star Wars thematically, philosophically, psychologically? The third unit we'll look at explores beyond the films and starts thinking about Star Wars as a cultural movement, the fans that make up Star Wars, the expanded universe, Disney's acquisition. We'll start thinking more and more about things like capital and how it influences our storytelling, more and more about things like culture and how it wraps us in story all the time. In this unit, we'll be exploring a formal report, far more rigorous, far more difficult, and far longer. This report will rely much more on independent research. Finally, we'll turn to the sequel trilogy, the most recent films that have just come out in the last few years and just concluded this past December. In this unit, we'll focus on the essay exam, a form that everyone's going to encounter at some point in their 4 years in college. As we work through these papers, we'll be using what's called the sequence method. This means that every final paper that we produce will have standing behind it a series of smaller papers that sort of inch their way up towards that final major paper. Even between those short writing assignments that scaffold towards the larger paper, we'll have smaller journal assignments that lead towards the short writing assignment. All that is to say, you're not expected to simply produce a 10-page paper in a week. Instead, you're being trained in how to research, how to prepare, and how to write that paper across the entirety of the unit. Finally, a note on taking this class online. There's this misunderstanding, this misconception about what education is, especially higher education. There's this idea that you're supposed to walk into a classroom and the teacher just dumps all the knowledge into your head. They just unscrew your little noggin and pour all this stuff into your brain. That's not how this works, though. Higher education is less about having knowledge given to you and more about teaching you how to find knowledge yourself. That means that in a university classroom, what you should expect is that the professor creates a space where it becomes possible for you to learn. In this class, we'll have a few opportunities. All of the writing content is going to be available online. Your prompts, essays, samples, readings, everything will be available online. We will have special meetings on Wednesdays called student hours. These meetings are reserved specifically for people who want a little bit more guidance on writing. I don't know what to do with this paper. I'm a little bit confused on what the prompt is. These kinds of things. Student hours are not mandatory, but I'd invite you to come to them if you'd feel like you'd like a little bit more information or a little bit more help in certain areas. We will also have weekly a discussion session where we can come together and discuss the Star Wars films. This discussion session will be mandatory. Before you attend the discussion session, please go online and submit your notes for the session. This should just be something simple, discussing what you want to talk most about in our meeting together. I'm excited about teaching this course. I'm excited to watch the films. I'm excited to discuss them with you and to hear your thoughts and your ideas. I'm excited to see what you come up with in your papers and to read your insights and your arguments and your research.